The terms are clear.
Agreed. Let's proceed.
Good game. Very nice.
Sup, Joe?
Hello, everyone. Tonight, we're stepping into Las Vegas in the 1940s and 1960s, and we're going to bring it back to life, just for you. If you enjoyed this journey, like the video, subscribe to Step Into History, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next journey.
What if I told you that the most glamorous mile on Earth was literally paved with mob money,
built this
backroom
city.
deals, and
Not
blood?
dreams, not luck.
The Las Vegas Strip didn't start as a dream. It started as a racket. And
This
the
is where
guys
it
who
begins.
built it wore
Right here.
fedoras, not hard hats. I used AI to rebuild these decades year by year. The gangsters, the
Under the desert
entertainers,
sky, you're-
and the moment a dusty desert highway became the entertainment capital of the world. But before we get to what happened, you need to understand what was already sitting on Highway 91 by the mid-1940s. A couple of Western-themed roadside resorts, El Rancho Vegas and the Hotel Last Frontier, had proven that travelers would actually pull off the highway and spend money in the middle of the desert. But those properties were modest operations, built on cowboy charm and simple motor court layouts. Nobody had yet tried to bring real big city luxury to this stretch of sand. That was about to change, and the man who changed it was a gangster from New York with expensive taste and a very short temper. The transformation of the Strip began on December 26, 1946, when Benjamin "Bugsy" Seago threw open the doors of the Flamingo Hotel and Casino. Seago and his mob backers had taken over a half-built project originally started by Hollywood nightclub owner Billy Wilkerson and pumped $6 million of organized crime money into finishing it. For the first time, a genuine luxury resort stood on the desert highway outside Las Vegas. A pink Art Deco palace with fine dining, a full-scale gaming hall, and a swimming pool lined with Brazilian lava rock. The opening night was pure Hollywood glamour. Jimmy Durante headlined the entertainment, and celebrities flew in from Los Angeles to see what all the fuss was about. But trouble was lurking
Nobody talks
behind the
outside this
scenes
room.
from the very
Understood.
start.
Vegas is ours now.
The construction costs had ballooned wildly beyond what Seagull had promised his mob investors back east, and the casino was hemorrhaging money. After just 2 weeks, the Flamingo's doors abruptly closed as Seagull scrambled to fix the financial mess he had created. Defying every expectation, Seago managed to reopen the Flamingo on March 1st, 1947. This time, the operation ran more smoothly, and Seagull even claimed the resort was turning a profit within weeks. For a brief moment, it looked like the gamble might actually pay off. But
We moved the
Seagull's
shipment
mob
tonight.
partners
Chicago's
had not
already
forgotten
waiting. No
those
mistakes this
ballooning
time, and we're
construction
settled.
costs or the embarrassment of the botched opening night. Just 111 days after the reopening, on June 20th, 1947, Bugsy Seagull was shot and killed at his girlfriend's home in Beverly Hills. The murder was never officially solved, but everyone in the underworld understood the message. Seagull had cost the mob too much money and too much reputation, and that was a debt that could only be settled one way. His flame burned bright and impossibly brief, but it proved something that every gangster and investor in America noticed. Las Vegas was a place where organized crime could stake a huge public and enormously profitable claim. In the wake
take
of
Fremont
Seagull's
first,
death,
and
the
the
mafia
casinos,
did not
one
pull
step
out
at a
of
time.
Las Vegas.
And Vegas is ours.
It pushed deeper in. Mob figures from New York, Chicago, Cleveland, and other major cities recognized that the Strip was a potential gold mine. and they began backing the next wave of resort construction with serious money. By the late 1940s and early 1950s, organized crime funding was being combined with investments from legitimate businessmen who smelled opportunity and were willing to look the other way about where their partners' money came from. The result was a new generation of glittering resorts rising from the desert sand. The Thunderbird opened in 1948, followed by the Desert Inn in 1950 under Wilbur Clark's name, but largely financed by Cleveland mob figure Mo Deutz and his associates. The Desert Inn pushed a country club atmosphere with swimming pools, a golf course, and elegant showrooms designed to keep wealthy guests on the property for days at a time. Each new resort was bigger, flashier, and more ambitious than the last, and the pattern was now firmly established. Mob money built the building. Legitimate operators ran the front of house, and the profits flowed in both directions. And then came the man who would become more synonymous with Las Vegas than any gangster who ever lived. In September 1951, Frank Sinatra made his Las Vegas debut at the Desert Inn. At that particular moment, Sinatra was at the absolute lowest point of his career. His record sales had collapsed. His marriage had fallen apart, and Hollywood had essentially written him off as yesterday's news. He arrived in Las Vegas not as a conquering star, but as a man desperately looking for a second act. What happened next became one of the greatest comeback stories in American entertainment history. Sinatra's raw talent, his magnetic stage presence, and his effortless cool turned out to be exactly what the Strip's showrooms were looking for. Vegas audiences did not care about chart positions or studio politics. They cared about the experience in the room, and Sinatra delivered that experience like nobody else could. The desert gave Sinatra a stage when nobody else would, and in return, Sinatra gave the desert something it had never had before: genuine star power. The relationship between Sinatra and Las Vegas deepened dramatically with the opening of the Sands Hotel and Casino on December 5, 1952. The Sands was backed by Texas oil man Jake Friedman and a collection of other investors widely rumored to be fronts for the Chicago mob syndicate. From the very first night, the Sands positioned itself as Sinatra Country, a resort built around the idea that the biggest names in entertainment would make this their permanent home base.
Neither do I.
By October 1953, Sinatra had officially debuted at the Sands, and the hotel quickly became his personal playground. He performed there regularly, gambled there constantly, and held court in the lounges and restaurants like a king presiding over his domain. The Sands gave Sinatra a headquarters, and Sinatra gave the Sands an identity that no amount of advertising money could have purchased. Every time he stepped onto that Copa Room stage, he brought with him a wave of celebrity attention that lifted the entire Strip. Throughout the mid-1950s, more mob-financed resorts kept appearing up and down Las Vegas Boulevard. The Sahara had opened in 1952, and the Riviera followed in 1955 with a 9-story tower that became the first high-rise on the Strip.
If this goes through,
the gangster funding behind many of these properties was often disguised through layers of legitimate business fronts, but the money's origins were an open secret in the industry. Organized crime cash was the engine driving the Strip's explosive growth, and everyone involved understood the arrangement. But the mob wasn't the only kind of dangerous dreamer drawn to the Strip. In the early 1960s, a heavy-set Atlanta motel developer named Jay Sarno passed through Las Vegas on a scouting trip and never left. Sarno was not a gangster. He was something almost stranger, a man who genuinely believed that people didn't just want to gamble, they wanted to become someone else for a weekend. That idea was about to change everything. Sarno looked at the Strip and saw something nobody else had seen yet. Every resort so far had been built around a theme in the loosest sense. Cowboy charm, Art Deco polish, tropical gardens. But Sarno wanted to go deeper. He didn't want guests to walk into a hotel with a theme.
People don't come to Vegas
He
just
wanted
to gamble
guests to walk
They
into
come
a
here to
world.
escape reality for a night.
To finance his vision, he did what every builder in Las Vegas did at the time. He called in favors from people who asked very few questions. Sarno secured a $10.6 million loan from the Teamsters Union Pension Fund, effectively mob-adjacent money routed through union boss Jimmy Hawwa, and began building. The Dunes had opened in 1955 with its Arabian Sultan figure on the roof. The Tropicana had followed in 1957, spending $15 million to earn itself the nickname the Tiffany of the Strip, with its tropical gardens and cascading water features. The Stardust had opened in 1958 as the largest hotel on Earth, with over 1,000 rooms and a neon sign so enormous it lit up the desert sky for miles. Each of these resorts had pushed the Strip further, but none of them had crossed the threshold that Sarno was about to cross. On August 5, 1966, Caesar's Palace opened its doors, and Las Vegas was never the same again. The building cost somewhere between $19 and $24 million, depending on who was counting.
If we build this right,
What it bought was something that could not be measured in dollars. Sarno had imported marble fountains from Italy. He had lined the entrance drive with cypress trees. He had commissioned full-size Roman statues. He had designed the casino floor in a deliberate oval with no straight corridors, so that guests would lose their sense of direction and wander longer. Toga-earring cocktail waitresses moved through interiors that evoked an imperial palace rather than a commercial building. The opening party alone cost $1 million, with 50,000 glasses of champagne served over 3 nights. Sarno was quoted as saying he chose the name Caesars deliberately without an apostrophe because he wanted every guest to feel like a Caesar, not like a visitor to Caesar's house. That single idea that the guest was the emperor was the most consequential design philosophy in Las Vegas history. Every resort built after Caesar's Palace was in some way an answer to the question Sarno had posed. What world do you want to let people inhabit? But Sarno wasn't done. 2 years after opening the most sophisticated resort the Strip had ever seen, he built its exact opposite. And it worked just as well. Circus Circus arrived in 1968 as a casino unlike anything else on the boulevard. Where Caesars had offered Roman grandeur, Circus Circus offered chaos and spectacle. Trapeze artists flew above the casino floor. Carnival games lined the mezzanine above the tables. A baby elephant had been promised at the opening party, though accounts of whether it actually appeared vary. Sarno himself dressed as a ringmaster, top hat and all, and personally greeted the 10,000 people who showed up on opening night. It almost immediately struggled. The reason was instructive. Sarno had been so confident that the spectacle was the draw that he had built no hotel. There was nowhere for guests to sleep. They came, they stared, they left.
Feels like Vegas.
The lesson that in Las Vegas you had to give people a reason to stay, not just a reason to visit, cost Sarno dearly, and a hotel tower wouldn't be added until 1972. But Circus Circus survived and eventually thrived. And what it proved was something important about the Strip's strange logic. The same man who had built the most opulent property on the boulevard had also built one of its most chaotic. And both worked because they permitted people to stop being themselves, imperial grandeur or carnival madness. Sarno understood that Las Vegas was fundamentally in the business of transformation, not just entertainment. The decade then closed with one final act of one-upmanship that capped everything that had come before it. 𝐒𝐭𝐞𝐸𝐻, a self-made aviation billionaire who had already been quietly involved in Las Vegas for years, opened the International Hotel on July 2, 1969. A 30-story tower with 1,512 rooms, the largest hotel on Earth the moment its doors opened. Barbra Streisand performed at the opening. Elvis Presley followed weeks later, beginning what would become a residency of more than 600 shows. The same strip of highway that had held two modest motor courts in 1945 was now home to the biggest hotel ever built, headlined by the biggest names alive. What Sarno had imagined in the early 1960s, that Las Vegas could be a place where the guest became the main character, had been proven correct on the grandest possible scale. Organized crime had built the stage, but by the late 1960s, its grip was beginning to loosen. Newer owners with legitimate corporate backgrounds were starting to buy up properties, and the city's growing respectability was slowly pushing the old guard into the shadows. Howard Hughes arrived in Las Vegas in 1966 and began purchasing casinos at a remarkable pace, bringing a new kind of eccentric but legal money to the Strip. The era of openly mob-financed resorts was coming to an end, even if the veneer of old-school gangster glamour would linger in the city's DNA for decades to come. When I think about those early decades on the Strip, I see a story that could only have been born in one place, built by the wrong people for all the right reasons. Mob money raised the buildings. Sinatra filled the rooms. And somehow, out of all that crime and chaos, came something that became permanent American mythology. That neon glow never really faded, and millions of people still picture it when they close their eyes. Thank you for watching Step into History. For a brief moment, you stepped into a world that once existed, a city that shaped history, and lives that felt just as real as ours today. These stories are more than the past. They are echoes of how we lived, built, and understood the world. If you want to continue exploring lost civilizations, subscribe and join the journey. Where should we travel next?